So recently I watched a couple of videos related to Canadian politics, and I know this is an important year, being an election year, which is coming up soon actually, so interested to see how that'll go. You can tell me what you think. And I thought I would learn a little bit more about Canadian politics by watching this video. Political parties in Canada explained. Liberals, Conservatives, NDP, Bloc? Is that a party? I'm not too sure. Interested to see this. Of course, I know a little bit about Canadian politics, but really not a lot. I've heard of the Liberals, Conservatives, I know the leaders and so on. But interested to know more. Interested to see there's other political parties as well. So should be interesting to know more about them. Tell me what you think about the upcoming election, who you think is going to win. Can any of the smaller parties have any sort of impact? Let's watch this and learn.
Actual rainbow of political parties.
Whoa, okay. So there's actually a huge amount. I mean, what is this? This is just a weed party. The Green Party. I've got some French party over here. Interesting, a huge amount actually. What is this? Is that some sort of communist party as well? I guess there's some more fringe parties there. Interested to see this. Being from the UK, we have like two main parties. There's a couple other parties, maybe 4 or 5 in total, that really have any sort of impact on the election. But this is quite a huge amount. Tell me if you support any of the smaller parties and why.
Yes, these are all active and registered parties with Elections Canada. If I were to talk about all of these, this video would be over an hour long, and nobody has time for that. We'll look at the parties that managed to win at least 1% in the last Canadian federal election according to the official results, which leaves us with these. Sorry, Rhinoceros Party. As much as I would love to talk about your positions of bribing Weather Network hosts to forecast more sunshine on the weekends, annexing Massachusetts to have more championship sports teams, and replacing teachers with photos of famous scientists, you didn't make the cut.
Why, man? That's the party I want to know about. I thought when he was saying the Rhinoceros Party, he was just joking about their logo. They literally called the Rhinoceros Party. I thought it was some sort of like hard right party or something based on this, but yeah, literally called the Rhinoceros Party, man. Some interesting situations they've got into so far.
Scientists, you didn't make the cut. Let's get started with the two big ones. Only the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party and its previous iterations have ever actually formed government in Canada. With a small exception in 1917 during the First World War, when a Unionist party made up of members of both the Liberals and Conservatives ran on a pro-conscription platform and ended up winning. But even then, it was still mostly a Conservative party. The most successful of the Canadian parties has been the Liberal Party. So let's start there. And as a result of this success, sometimes they've actually even been called Canada's natural governing party. The Liberal Party occupies the center-left of the political spectrum. And depending on the vision set forward by the leader at any given time, they tend to move around anywhere in this zone here. In recent years, the Liberal Party has drifted a little bit more to the left and championed issues like fighting climate change through a federal carbon tax, supporting...
Just on that carbon tax, that's something I've seen mentioned a lot over the last couple of years from both sides. Tell me more about that. It seemed to be quite a big talking point. I understand the concept of it, but why was it so contentious? But yeah, a lot of like big policies there, like very big decisions there as well. So tell me what you think about them, and how does the Liberal Party, for instance, compare to maybe the Democrats in the US? Are these more central than the Democrat Party in the US?
And championed issues like fighting climate change through a federal carbon tax, supporting families through the Canadian Child Care Benefit, and a generally open policy towards immigration and refugees. But their more centrist side was still showing when, for example, in 2017, the Liberal Party bought the Kinder Morgan Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion project when it was in danger of not moving forward. Now, with once again a new leader, perhaps the Liberal Party might be shifting more towards the center, focusing more on fiscal responsibility, investment in public infrastructure, and diversifying Canada's trade relationships with the rest of the world, while
Seems
still
sensible.
working on environmental policies aimed at making Canada more sustainable, but with more industry-focused sustainability practices and not so much making Canadians change their lifestyles in the name of environmentalism. The second major part...
That seems like a sensible approach to me, honestly. Like, I know that in Canada over the last couple of years, the Conservative Party have been gaining more support, so for them to actually to not just dig their heels in, like you've seen the Democrats in the US, just to move further left, if anything, for them to move a bit more central and actually take some important moves there that are going to benefit the country as a whole. I think it seems like a sensible move. I think I read recently that since Carney came into power, that the Liberal Party have actually gained a lot more support. Maybe it's because of this move more to the centre. But again, like, there's so many issues in any country that I think it's like better to see that they're not just like assigning all their thoughts to be completely left on every issue just for the sake of what their party stands for. It's good to see some flexibility in that as well, I think.
Party in Canada is the Conservative Party. And the history of the current Conservative Party is a little windy. Under the government of Progressive Conservative Prime Minister Brian Mulroney in the 1980s, a breakaway party called the Reform Party formed, mainly to address feelings of Western alienation. This split in the Conservative vote in the 1990s led to several consecutive Liberal majority governments. The Reform Party renamed itself the Canadian Alliance in 2000, and then recombined with the PC Party in 2003 to form the party we still have today, the Conservative Party of Canada. The Conservatives, or the Tories as they're sometimes known based on their British nickname, are part of the centre-right of the political spectrum in Canada. And these days are moving a little bit to the right of the former Progressive Conservative Party of Canada. They generally hold more socially conservative views and more classical liberal views on economics, such as a focus on lowering taxes, generally more free market economic principles, and programs such as the Canadian Tax-Free Savings Account, which was created under Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Lately, they've been very critical of policies that have raised the cost of living in Canada, such as the Liberal carbon tax and the rapidly increasing cost of housing. They have also been critical on social equity outcomes, instead focusing more on providing more equality of opportunity. They're also generally more supportive of Canada's oil and gas industry and have been in favor of building more pipelines. Nevertheless, their centrism does still continue to show with their continued support of things like Canada's universal health care, though they are open to exploring more private options within a public system, as well as an unwillingness to open debates on things like abortion rights. Back on the left wing of the spectrum,
so yeah, again, what I like about Canadian politics is that the two main parties are not so extreme as maybe you see in the US. They both seem relatively sensible in a way. I mean, I guess you could probably argue that from either side, what you think about that. But again, yeah, you've seen from what I've seen, the Conservative Party of Canada touch on a lot of these talking points that you see the American Republicans talking about as well, and seem to have been gaining a lot of support. But yeah, I don't know the current situation leading into the election. It seems to have changed slightly recently, but what do you think is going to be the outcome or the winner out of these two?
We have Canada's New Democratic Party, or NDP as they're more commonly called. Even though the NDP have never actually formed government in Canada, their consistent support has given them considerable power in various governments, especially in minority government situations, where their votes have been important in supporting the government in power. They also had an especially strong showing in 2011 when they actually came second to Stephen Harper's Conservative Party and formed the official opposition. The NDP have had some significant contributions to Canada since they were founded in 1961 as a successor to the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, or CCF, a major democratic socialist and labor rights party. It was the CCF in Saskatchewan under Premier Tommy Douglas that implemented Canada's first universal healthcare system. Douglas then worked with Conservative Prime Minister John Diefenbaker and Liberal Prime Minister Lester B. Pearson to bring this universal healthcare project Canada-wide. Bringing together so many distinct parties on one issue, that was quite a feat. Today's NDP continues.
Yeah, do you think you could ever see anything? Is there any topic or any issue that you could see these three parties in Canada come together to try and push through or to support together?
Defeat. Today's NDP continues to focus on some of these social democratic positions, like expanding universal healthcare to include things like dental care and pharmacare, and they're also proponents on policies on racial equity, implementing the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls to action, and ideas like student loan forgiveness, building more affordable housing, and new programs like introducing a guaranteed livable income for all Canadians. Let's move on to...
Well, man, again, like those are like sort of like big policies or big decisions. Like they could have quite a big change on Canada. Like, are they got how big is their support? Like with, I mean, you see in a lot of countries, people are getting like kind of tired of the main political parties. I don't know if that's the same in Canada to any extent. It's like definitely the case in the UK. Do they have any sort of growing support? Like it seems like the policies again make a lot of sense and actually would be quite good for Canada.
To a party with a very distinct role in Canadian politics, the Bloc Québécois. They only run candidates in Quebec, which means that even if they won every single seat that they contest, they'd still never be able to form a majority government. But that's not quite what they're in this for. Their political stance is Quebec sovereignty. However, what that has meant over the years has changed. When the party was formed in the early 1990s, it literally meant sovereignty for Quebec, or the establishment of a new nation state for Quebec, separate from the rest of Canada. The history of all this is complicated, but the most recent attempt at Quebec separatism came in 1995, with a referendum led by the provincial Parti Québécois with support from the Bloc Québécois. This 1995 referendum was won by the Remain side by the absolute most razor-thin of margins. Since then, the popularity of Quebec separatism has diminished, but the party still sees a lot of support with the people of Quebec in its defense of Quebec language, rights, and culture. Politically, the Bloc stands on the center-left side of the spectrum. They've advocated for things like reducing greenhouse gas emissions to fight climate change, reducing wait times for immigration applications, and ensuring that the Canadian federal government continues to fund public health care. Another one of the smaller parties...
Yeah, again, like that kind of reminds me of maybe the Scottish National Party in Britain as well, who like don't have enough power in the overall landscape of British politics, but do have a lot in Scottish politics, or they win a lot of seats there. Quite similar to UK. Conservative Party is similar. It's like the Labour Party in the UK, and this is kind of like the Liberal Democrats or something like that. And then we have the Green Party.
Parties in the Canadian ecosystem is the Green Party of Canada. As you can imagine, they're also on this crowded left side of the political spectrum with a focus on environmentalism and sustainability. In the 21st century, they've managed anywhere between 3 and 7% of the popular vote in Canadian federal elections, and they elected their first member of parliament in 2011 when Green Party leader Elizabeth May was elected as the MP from Saanich Gulf Islands in British Columbia. Aside from their focus on environmental sustainability, the Greens have also ran on platforms like student loan forgiveness and even making post-secondary education free in Canada, a guaranteed livable income similarly to the NDP, and universal childcare. In terms of Indigenous relations in Canada, they have advocated for an immediate implementation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls to action. Finally, we have one of the newest parties in the Canadian political landscape, the People's Party of Canada. They were formed by former Conservative Party member Maxime Bernier, who basically believed that the Conservative Party just wasn't right-wing enough. So that puts them all the way here on the political spectrum. Some of the People's Party's core beliefs are a general skepticism about climate change, meaning they advocate for the withdrawal from several sustainability programs and initiatives. They also promote the deregulation of industry, limiting immigration, and less of a focus on Canada's official multiculturalism policy, and instead promoting the cultural integration of newcomers. There we have it. lots of voices in the Canadian political system from several credible parties. Even
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess like at least people got some different options. Definitely compared to like US politics was only really two. You got a lot more options there, left and right. Do any like centrist parties ever get any real popularity or anything? I would like at least a party who don't really say we're right or left. We just like look at every issue individually, because things change over time as well. Like it's like ingraining yourself in one side or the other. Like seems like long term it would be detrimental, because countries change, like situations change, economies change, and so on. So like viewpoints need to change with that as well. I think, I don't know, that maybe that's just a dumb thing to say, but yeah, interesting look at that. It definitely have learned a lot from that video. What do you think about it? Like, can any like these smaller parties get any real support this election cycle? And yeah, what do you think about it? Thanks.